Alrighty, let's start today off with GBP USD. The other two pairs that majority of you guys messaged me to map out are UJ and EA, okay? And these three pairs I do really love. But despite it being a Friday usually has a lot of volume. We also have to take into account that the monthly candle will be closing very, very soon, and the weekly candle ends today. Okay, so besides all of those that could affect the volume and what people trade, we also have a very interesting lineup. There's a lot of news lineup and high impact lineups, right? So we have from Euro pairs, JPY pairs, CAD, and USD, right? So if you are trading pairs or any pairs that have these crossed with, sometimes it can affect the volume because if it's you can see a drop or a spike in these movements if these are the pairs that you are trading. Okay, so starting with GBP USD, just want you to keep that in mind, right? Starting with GBP USD, I have my buy zone over here, which currently is testing the previous H4 tested our key level, right? And now it's bouncing back up. But if we go into a smaller time frame, you can see that M15 only just created this engulfing buy. M5 also created, within the zone, an engulfing sell that failed, right? Price has yet to come back to listen or show that it's going to respect any of these zones. So I'm going to take this M5 just to sharpen it a little bit more, like this. Okay, so something I'm going to monitor on both M5 and M15. So I'm not going to enter, I'm not going to chase the market. I'm going to wait for the price to come back again and see how it reacts because it's in my key level. Okay, so we have that going on for GBP USD near or in the buy zone. Then I have my sell zone up here, which is quite far away. But like I said, I like to trade big movements. So from key level to key level, that's already more than 200 pips. And not only that, it's the recent engulfing sell that respected this engulfing buy that failed. This seller, or this zone of a seller, was so strong that it caused the price to drop from this key level down to this key level of 200 pips consecutively, right? It took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 H4s to touch our sell zone or our buy zone from our sell zone. So that is why I'm taking this as my potential sell. If it wants to come up and test this zone, this is where I will potentially look for a sell. Okay, other than that, in the middle, I won't. Unless it decides to break my zone, then I'll look for the next zone. So let me just draw out the potentials for you. Current price is testing this. So what am I going to do? Wait for the price to come into our zone, see if it's going to respect it on H4. For lower traders, wait for H4 to close first. So if it does that, then I can look for potential buys. But if it breaks below, then there's a higher chance it wants to test a lower area. So either I can wait for the next buy zone or wait for the price to retrace back into our key level to look for a sell opportunity down to the next level. Okay, vice versa. If the price decides to come up into our buy zone, our sell zone, and respects it, then we can potentially look for sells. But it took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 consecutive candles to drop, and it's quite the amount of pips. Okay, so it might not happen today, but who knows with the lineup that we have on the news. Anything is possible, right? We're just looking at the likeliness of it. Now, if it breaks above our sell zone, then there's a potential it might want to test a higher area somewhere over here, right? We have our over here an engulfing buy that failed. Okay, so there's a potential for that. So either we wait on the next zone or again wait for the price to retrace back into our key level to look for the opportunity of the opposite movement up. Okay, I have marked H4, so what you are going to do for your entries is monitor M5 or M15 for your entries. Okay, wait for the setup to complete itself first before pressing anything to lower the risk. Alright, next pair, UJ. Also previously just tested our key level but let's just check. Okay, nothing much yet, so we're gonna wait. Okay, patience is key. So we have our buy zone over here and our sell zone. My buy zone is consistent of an engulfing sell that was respected multiple times, then finally failed. Price came back in, closed within, created this engulfing buy, and now it's testing the key level. Okay, then I have my sell zone. It's an engulfing buy that failed. In the process of failing, created this engulfing sell. Then I have my second engulfing sell. So you can see that this key level is super sharp. The sellers were so strong that when the price came in on the H4, it just pushed the price down to close over here. Okay, so the sellers are quite strong. So UJ, what do we do? Okay, we have to keep in mind with the news lineup, we have to keep in mind that both USD and JPY pairs are going to be affected. So of course UJ is going to be very affected. So it's something for us to monitor, and it's a learning curve for beginner traders. Okay, so current price, if it comes back into our zone and respects it, we can you know what, go and look for M5 and M15 setups that could potentially test for a potential buy up. Okay, so when the price comes back in, you just have to monitor it. Now, if it decides to break below, you know the drill. You wait for the next zone or wait for the price to retrace back into our zone for a drop. If it comes into our sell zone and respects it, then we can look for a potential sell in the key level. Okay, it doesn't matter if it's partially and it's still touching the key level. I will monitor those because I want the volume from the key levels. Okay, and if it breaks above our sell zone, then there's a potential it might want to test a higher area. Now again, something that is very important are SLs. So I usually give or I suggest 40 pips SL, since if you're trading on your own account, 40 pips is not too tight to lose, but it comes with proper money management. So if you do not know when to cut your losses, or you do not know when to exit the trade or close the trade manually when you're in losses, then it's better to set SL to help manage that. Okay, so I usually set SL of 40 pips from my entry. Okay, so this depends on how sharp you can get an entry, and sometimes you can even refine it down. Okay, so that's for UJ. Last but not least, EA, one of my favorite pairs. Okay, we have our sell zone over here, which is an engulfing sell meets an engulfing sell. Then we have our buy zone, which is an engulfing sell that was respected but later broken by this very strong bullish candle. Okay, so what do we do? This is a newly made engulfing fail, right? And we have our sell zone from engulfing sell meets engulfing sell. So EA, what I'm going to do is I have to wait for the price to come into my zone, right? I have to wait for the price to come into my zone. If it respects either the buy or the sell zone, we can look for buys and sells respectively, right? But if it breaks below or above these buy and sell zones, then there's a potential that it wants to test a lower or a higher area. Okay, TPs, let's talk about TPs. We know where to enter, we know where to set your SL. Now TPs, if you are someone who has a daily target that is achievable, is realistic, and you know how the minimum pips that you want to get per setup, then stick on that. Okay, if you are someone who is a newbie who has trouble holding for many pips, then break it down 10, 20, 30, 20, 30, 40, 20, 40, 60. Break it down into something that you're comfortable with, and once you are ready to test more of your limits, then you can increase, so it increases your tolerance to the market also. Last but not least, if you are someone who is like me, I like to trade from my key level to the next key level. Okay, so I like to trade for long term, and I like to hold long because I go for low risk trades and I wait. If there are days that it does not come into my zones, then I will do nothing but wait for the next day. Okay, so that's it for all the three pairs. Please trade smart, trade wise. There's quite a lineup of news today, and also it's a Friday, it's the end of the weekly candle, and the monthly candle is going to close, so just be wary of that. All right, so